Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Deep Thoughts. On this 60-degree evening, it was 83 degrees today, and now it's 60 and dropping, which is kind of funny when words about the global warming horseshit, and here we are swinging 25 degrees in one day, and hey, I'm still alive. Unbelievable. We've had a suggestion I think is amazing. Perfect. When I started diving into the suggestion, some things occurred to me, and it has to do with anarchy, more specifically anarchism. And then, I started looking into it, and, it's obviously a lot of the documentation on the concept is it's always been sort of this far left strategy. Very interesting. Where are we today? We're in a far left, hoopla, magnified, mass media bunch of horseshit. I'm not going to try to cuss this much in this episode, but we'll let that little one go through. There's this whole theory of order and chaos in the universe. Order out of chaos. Problem, reaction, solution is how David Icke says it, which is brilliant. A paraphrase that's worth repeating. And so some people, maybe up in some high philosophical frame of mind, might say, well, it's good to have all these kids burning down their own universities and punching old ladies in the face because they like the president of the United States. I think most of us are tired of that. But then it occurred to me while I was doing research on this, just some of the basic definitions, just reading sort of, just so I'm not missing some giant arc of what, formalized anarchy is all about. And what is the other big left agenda that we always hear about? Socialism/globalism. The complete opposite definition of anarchy. Anarchy's traditional definition is about essentially disemboweling your government from having any power over you, and then you live in little pockets where you kind of manage your own territory. Sort of pulling back from government and saying, it was a good idea, we tried it, but man, you guys fuck up everything. So it's interesting how an individual can endorse perhaps anarchy behavior. And of course, I know what they're going to say. I'm just against you, man. And then on the other side, we have this total, utter dependency on socialism, on the government, called socialism. Now, what happens when your body atrophies? You essentially, for a little while at least, lose the ability to use that part of your body. If you have your arm in a cast for a long time, or your leg in a cast for a long time, it atrophies a little bit. And as soon as you get it cut off, you have to teach your muscles again how to stand up, how to move your arms, how to hold something. If you're a bodybuilder, you'll definitely notice that, one of your arms is weaker than the other, and you got to work that one out a little bit more. And be careful about it. Go slowly, right? Well, socialism would be like having a cast on your whole body and your whole mind and your whole soul and your ability to sustain yourself. And you always have to have the cast of government around you to hold you up, to feed you, to supply you with what you need. And if it ever failed you, and you had to cut the cast off because your government plummets, someone takes over your government, they bomb your government, and you're left all of a sudden standing there with no knowledge of where you're going to get your next meal, who's going to keep the electric plants on? Anything. Terrifying, isn't it? Can you imagine? Down to your soul. You wouldn't even know how to worship a god because it would most likely be forbidden. The only god you would be allowed to know would be your government. And if it died, what happens then? So usually the question about anarchy comes up, and it's do you endorse it? Do you believe it has a time to be used in the universe to fight something? And that's about like asking, and the person who suggested this episode did not ask that question, but that's what usually happens. It's like asking, what is your opinion about abortion? You ask a male about abortion. Okay, the male gender will never have one. So how strong could their opinion be? It's about then the concept of life and whether or not it should be capable of being terminated because of certain circumstances. For a woman, it's extremely personal. It is a part of their body. They are carrying it. They're caring for it. Very personal. Now, some women, let's just be honest, and some men, let's just be honest, they don't care about, being pregnant. And, of course, someone with 50 kids, it's a little bit of a different opinion. But first-timers, sometimes they just go, oh, man, we're going to have a kid. Oh, my God. Whatever. It's rare, but it happens. With Anarchy, you have a very polarizing situation where you're like, okay, same with an abortion, or we're going to have to really look at all the facts here. Well, how did you get pregnant? What's the problem here? Why do you have to do that? Why do you feel like you have to do that? Same thing happens with Anarchy. Why do you think you need to do that? When I think about just absolute George Soros funded Craigslist assholes showing up for protests, going into the Supreme Court hearing, and then walking out to a tree and getting a bundle of money out of an envelope while some, tofu-eating douchebag is passing out the cash. Yeah, I don't have any sympathy for that shit. I don't believe in that. It's orchestrated infiltration and treason against the country. Anyone taking a check from George Soros to protest in this country should be charged for treason and sent the fuck out of this country. They just should, in my opinion. But then again, if I was President Trump, George Soros would be either dead or locked away so hardcore that you'd never see him again. It's serious business. Infiltrating a country. But we have militiamen, right? We have the Minutemen movement here in America where a bunch of guys are like, look, I'm all about common law. I'm all about the Constitution of the United States, and I support the Republic. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I want sovereignty for mankind. I want freedom of speech. I want the right to bear arms so I can protect the freedom of speech. I don't want to be eavesdropped on. I don't want to have to house soldiers, etc., down the line. We tend, in the truth movement, which has got a bunch of weird fragmentations now, just like the Catholic religion, we tend to support the Minutemen because they kind of sound exactly like a soldier that's been sworn into the military. And we sure as hell support them. They're willing to give their life for the country. But are they considered anarchists at times? Let me parse what I think is the difference. This is my opinion. I've never been an anarchist. I don't know any. Your Minutemen stand firm and stand their ground, and they simply say, this is America. And it's a concept. It's an idea. America could be anywhere in the world as long as you had the idea to have it. Yes, it is cannibalized from great efforts like Magna Carta, which was completely compromised before 500 years was up. But America's done pretty good with this experiment to revitalize Magna Carta, simplify it, and instantiate it and keep it going. Now, of course, there's been illusions of freedom, and depending on what metric you're parsing, there still are illusions of freedom in this country. But there's a change coming, right? Change is happening right now. What you don't find is someone speaking their mind, engaging the First Amendment, and Minutemen show up to be assholes. That doesn't happen. At least I've never heard it happen. I mean, someone could say that they believe in socialism and they believe in abortion as just an absolute method of casual birth control. And these people don't show up. They let them have their opinion. And they pretty much say, well, I don't think that opinion is widely received. You're more than welcome to give your opinion. The Minutemen only show up when people, when various federal agencies would siege people's properties, try to destroy a farmer's land or something. Right? There's all kinds of cases out there. Some Senator Reid wants to sell land to the Chinese to build a big solar panel farm, and he cites some turtle in the desert to keep out other people from occupying the land so he can seize it as eminent domain and sell it to China. He fails, and they beat the shit out of him. Go look up those pictures of his face all bashed in. Believe me, that's because he failed. But the provocateur, Milo, who I have so far amazing respect for, extremely intelligent human being, Yes, we should probably say, because if he was sitting right here next to me, he'd let you know, he's a gay Jewish guy. He married his partner, who's a black man. So he is absolutely the most, I think, he's one of the most in touch people to the human condition that we have today. He tried to speak at Berkeley University, and anarchists showed up. Of course, super tough with their, bandanas across their face because they don't want to be identified. Hell, they may not even be from this country. In some cases, they could be, bad cops or bad intelligence officers hiding in this stuff. But most of them are just punk kids swinging their skateboards and all kinds of other shit because they wish they had a life. But that's an anarchist. They show up to shit start, right? I'm doing horrible with my swearing regimen tonight. But is there a time when that should happen? I recently mentioned the movie Total Recall for a completely different reason. But in that movie, there was an anarchist sort of resistance in the planet Mars, where the guy that ran the place, the mining agency dude, was really starting to treat everyone really badly. And so they were trying to resist the corporation and kind of, blow up facilities and make it hard for him. So he'd have to capitulate and give in to normal conditions, human rights conditions, right? It didn't really work at all. And it was resolved in the end not because of them, but because of Arnold Schwarzenegger's character. I guess they contributed, but anarchy in its pure form, I don't think works. Because it's not organized. It doesn't have demands. It doesn't try to be diplomatic in any way, shape, or form. It doesn't attempt to necessarily inform the citizenship of the problem. When you inform the citizens, as this possum walks by me back here, you see him right there? Yeah, those of you listening on iPad or iPods, you're missing out here. But simply disrupting things will get you, I think, temporary change because they're only responding to the moment. Let's give an example. Government wants to seize a bunch of land that is traditionally Native American reserves because there's either oil underneath it or they need to run an oil pipe over it. Okay. Well, more of your Minutemen kind of people showed up for that, for sure. Big ass brawls, horrible situation. But it was not anarchists, okay? And so they had a problem. They needed the entire country of America to understand what was going on. They needed the word to spread. Hey guys, this is going on. And they've spilt oil and all kinds of crazy stuff on our land and polluted it. Now I'm sure maybe there's a little bit of exaggeration here and there on their end, but overall we know we didn't, we got to be careful with just running big giant ugly pipes through areas of untouched forest and wildlife areas. It'll disrupt the animals, it'll screw things up, and we just got to be careful. An anarchy thing is like the protests that are going on now before the midterms. Random pockets of the world exploding with these little tiny protests that, draw blood. People getting bludgeoned in the face. And these cowardice pussy men hitting chicks in the face who are simply peacefully attending speeches, attending rallies, and just representing themselves, not being belligerent or, screaming in anyone's face, which is assault, right? Threatening someone's safety. They had the girl from what I think it was San Francisco or something actually punched a guy in the face, and he turned around and absolutely knocked her out. Well, you want to play that game, then you're going to play that game, right? A chick doesn't normally go into a bar, tap a guy on the shoulder and spin him around when she's 130 pounds and punch a guy in the face who's 220 as a construction worker. Maybe a big chick can do that. Go up to a 5'8" guy and knock him out or whatever. There's plenty of women that can do that. But, in these protests, these women lose their fucking minds. Even these little kids do. These little boys, right? But they all kind of team up like hyenas. And you got the teacher, the professor that swung a fucking padlock on the end of a chain at somebody's head. That's like a lethal weapon. You could kill someone in a second with that. And a professor who can't think for himself, he's a memorizer and repeater, he's a complete fucking coward that didn't go into the real world and get a job. That particular guy is definitely one of those guys. And so he has no perception of reality. He doesn't know what it's like to have to earn a paycheck. He doesn't know what it's like to start a corporation, have to pay the dues and hold your meetings and take care of employees and buy health care and all that kind of stuff. The guy has no clue. He's living on the dole. He's literally living in a subculture of socialism called the educational system. Guy can't be fired, right? Hits his 10-year mark. He can molest every girl in this class, and he's just going to get shifted around to different universities. That's why I got to make changes in this stuff. But let's say an anarchist creates a big stink. Horrible stink. Well, the government, or people responsible for the protest, meaning not the ones that pay them like George Soros, but the ones that they're against, simply look at this as a flash in the pants. No one's being educated. Just the people that think they're educated have shown up and they've created this big problem. So they calm down everything. Then they'll swing out to neutralize those people. Look them up, threaten them with lawsuits, whatever. Or they'll just figure out what triggered them. What made them pay attention to us such that they came here with sort of an impression of what we do. Maybe they completely know, I don't know. Well, let's not do that. Let's change. Let's adjust the language of what this means. And then they won't notice. We'll move it offshore. We'll close that one building that they think it's all occurring in, and we'll open 10 more where they can't find them up in the hills somewhere. Boom. Problem solved. Now, Russell Brand was asked when he wrote his Revolution book whether or not, protesting and holding up signs actually help things. And even though I don't agree with a lot of things that he believes, I still respect him very, very much. He's an incredibly intelligent human being, let me tell you. It is strange how we can be fascinated by someone's intelligence and then we're completely different people, But he said he didn't think that actually worked anymore, holding up signs. And I have to agree. There's some strike going on in California right now, I think of Marriott or something like that. Hope I don't have that wrong. But it's like subsidiary hotels and motels that they own. I was in San Jose recently, and there were some protesters standing on a corner, very peaceful, got their signs out there. Poor guys, their union is putting them on strike. And usually, the only reason why those union settlements ever resolve is because, one, they're signed up to the union, and two, they need their workers to come back to work. But it's not because someone stood outside with signs and embarrassed the hotel. They don't care about that. They don't care about that at all. What makes the public support any sort of protests? Education. What is the issue here we're trying to deal with? Name something. What I find with most anarchy of the 21st century that I have seen so far, and it's only American and it's very light, okay, is that you're not dealing with people that really want to have a three-dimensional understanding of a concept. Anyone who's for socialism, I think, has a very short attention span. They're people that fail at chess because they can't think it through. You sit down to an average kid about socialism and you say, why do you like socialism? And they'll say, well, because I think wealth should be distributed. There shouldn't be anyone that has something that I don't have. Oh, well, let's just put aside all those families that gave their kids all the money in the world. There's quite a few of them in Southern California, but world population-wise, it's an infinitesimal percent of an infinitesimal percent. So the rest of the people that I know that are filthy rich earned it. They went and got educated. A lot of them from really bad, financial districts. They weren't rich at all. They invent something, they work hard, they save, whatever they have it because they worked really, really hard. But now, as we always say on the show, the education system in this world, at least in the United States, has been destroyed. Utterly destroyed. We have bad left-brain educations that don't yield jobs. We've lost the arts. So creativity is at an all-time low in this country. It's so funny. If we were to bring back the pharaohs from Egypt and say, this is America today, what do you think's wrong with this place? They go, well, where's your art? Where's your creativity? Where's the right brain? And then they just go, we say, oh, we got rid of it. And they say, well, that's your problem, you idiots. You're You are a left brain, right brain thing. And if you don't nurture both sides of your brain, it'd be like walking around with a big giant left arm and a tiny puny right arm. Well, I think most of us, if we woke up with a Popeye left arm and an olive oil right arm, we go see a doctor real fast and probably go to the gym. Now, what happens if America were to have elected Hillary Clinton and the overall cabal, the 16-year plan to destroy this country, had completed? All the favors and all of the criminals that are touching kids and killing kids are all hidden and exonerated and promoted. Who knows what her list of favors were, but it was like Satan incarnate, okay? And if you think I'm joking, I ain't joking, okay? We dodged a bullet of unbelievable proportions, and we are still in like the Matrix, back pedal thing. So those bullets are still coming, and we're all doing the big lean back right now. We haven't quite uprighted our body, and we haven't destroyed the enemy just yet. But at least we know who they are. We know how they maneuver, and we have, for the time being, we have learned how to dodge their bullets. Okay? They may have something else in planned, right? But what if we were completely taken over? Alternate universe, she won. We would have problems, I think. And we would probably have problems at a level where we'd have to make some pretty big decisions about what we're going to do with our life, right? Now, I've said on episodes a couple seasons back that I definitely have close friends of mine that have said to me stupid things like, well, as long as you get yours, it's okay. Meaning, they'll join the negative side, the dark side, and sell out their country and sell out everything. They'll sell out their fucking kids' future. Just as long as they get a little paycheck and live a slightly better life before they die. I used to think those people didn't exist in any level of bulk, and when I had friends tell me to my face who otherwise represent themselves to everyone else as extremely patriotic, I was fucking shocked. I'm just going to put an F-bomb around that because I was shocked. Very disappointing. Perhaps the person did not mean what they were saying, the way I took it. I don't believe that sort of compromise should be made or allowed at any level ever, consciously. You may do it unconsciously, or you may be put in a really impossible situation and you have two bad scenarios that you can resolve the situation with, and you simply pick the lesser one with a paycheck. It happens all the time when you get wrongfully terminated. You can either go fight in court and lose your life for 10 years, or you take a little severance check and you go home and you find a better company. Okay, that's probably one I could stomach, right? But if you woke up and this place was being run by agencies in Europe, and I mean completely, they decide what chemicals we have to inject in our children and in ourselves. They decide what we can see on TV. They decide what educational books we have. And a lot of this has been occurring for 40 years, 50 years, so I understand. Some of you are yelling at me if you read Charlotte Iserbyt's stuff. Well, at some point, the human spirit, which is born from freedom and truth, rises up, and it will not take a certain level of repression. But I will say that, unfortunately, I do believe that there are cultures out there that are very docile, either through indoctrination of the mind, malnutrition, food supplies, bad medicine, or all the above. And they're still trying to get through that stage so that they can rise up and engage freedoms that we all deserve, freedoms as defined by the Republic. But what if we did wake up and everything was absolutely acidically strange? And we look at each other, a few people on the block that you live on, you're like, I just had to show papers to go to work, and somebody just roughed up the neighbor over there because he didn't want the door-to-door climate control person to fondle his wife. And we're just looking, and things have gone to shit. Robots, cruise the streets with lethal weapons, just in case you might move differently and they blow you away. It gets bad. The problem with anarchy in that situation is that you can't beat a gigantic moving object with a tiny rock or stone, right? Imagine a semi loaded, 18-wheeler. It's loaded to the max, and it is hauling ass. That would be the movement that might come around. It's a negative thing. And you're going, this shouldn't be here. This shouldn't be moving. This should be dismantled. This shouldn't exist because it's rolling over all of our rights. And some guy goes, I'll show him. I'll stand in front of it. Splat, and it's gone. I'll throw a stone at the windshield. Okay, great. Probably won't even care, but they might drop someone off or have a robot come get you, and you're gone. What you really had to offer was enlightenment. The, again, obsolete man episode of Twilight Zone with Burgess Meredith. He wasn't an anarchist in the traditional form. He had definitely thought the government got too big. It was telling him he couldn't read books. They were telling him that he was obsolete because he was a carpenter. And there was, I guess, I don't know, robots making furniture. I don't know what the hell the deal was. It's obviously a Christ homage. They told him he had to die, but he could pick his time of death and his method of death. And I've just said this a couple of episodes back, so I apologize for the repeat, but it's important here. And on the national TV system, or international TV system, who knows how big the country was there, he educated them through an example. He locked the guy who sentenced him to death in the room with him and said, you're going to die with me when the bomb explodes, which is in this room. And the guy panics and tries to leave the room on camera. It was the end of his career. Burgess actually let him out at the end. Burgess died. But he stood up for what he believed in. He read the Bible to himself before he died, teaching the world nobility and strength of the personal human spirit. What's going on right now with the Q movement and with, Democrats versus Republicans in the United States of America? On one side, you have 5 out of 6 media organizations on TV, all being very left. Last one is the Fox News, and they sort of play in the middle. All the newspapers and magazines are all left. Okay? All the award shows and about 90% of every late-night talk show is all left. Sort of disproportionately represented on the other side. They've taken, a microscopic group of, I think, incredibly impressionable, disappointed, disenfranchised people, and they put a magnifying glass on them as if they're gigantic. And people buy it every single night. The majority of these centralists to right, not far right, but central to right, constitutional people in America believe that there's this giant gang of people. They believe if they cross the border to California, you automatically can't determine whether or not someone's a boy or girl anymore, because of the way everyone looks. Not true. We have very focused pockets in California that are blue and radical, and they're tiny. Okay. I think moderation is the way we manage almost every single facet of our lives, from the way we eat, the way we sleep, the way we communicate with each other, how many dirty words I use. And I think that it's the way that the country should be run. A little bit of left, a little bit of right, a little bit of laws for the shoreline people, a little bit of laws for the inland people, methodologies that help them survive. I have never seen in my life what's happening today, nor have when I say I've never seen it in my life, I've never seen it in history. I'm sure it's happened, but I haven't seen it documented to any degree, which is that we have a bunch of people that are being lied to, young people, impressionable people, people who are actually suffering due to, again, bad education, bad government, who are going to be, I think, infinitely disappointed with the events that are going to occur in the next several years. They're going to be told they're on the winning team, and they're going to lose. And then their losing team is going to regroup. They're going to break the law. They're going to lie to people, right? Misrepresent the truth. And they're going to lose again. And this is going to go on year after year after year, vote after vote after vote. And I don't know what's going to happen to these people. Are they going to all commit suicide? Because whatever they try, it just fails? Are they going to come from the extreme left and kind of come towards the center where most of us exist. Rational thinking people that simply go, hey, I just want my kid to get a good education. I want you to get a good education. I want whatever debt you owe to a crappy college that gave you a crappy degree, I want it erased. Screw those people. Let them go bankrupt, right? You don't owe anyone anything for a degree that doesn't turn into a job, that has no prospects of turning into a job. I support you. You don't need socialism to fix your problems. We just need some fairness to happen. We need the government to endorse it. Your debts are forgiven if you were coaxed into a debt that was fraudulent, right? You know, you sit these people down, you just simply go, okay, you Berkeley protester, nice to see you without your little bandana on. Here's how we're going to fix your problem. What would you like to do with your life? Forget politics. Forget all that bullshit. Forget Elizabeth Warren lying that she's a Cherokee Indian. Forget about all that stuff. What do you want to be? What do you want to do? I'm not going to tell you that it's going to be an overnight fix, but we're going to get you on the right track. Yes, you're going to have to bust your ass, but guess what? You're going to love the results of working hard more than you ever loved sitting on your ass or throwing a fucking padlock into someone's face. Right? I think that guy should go to jail for the rest of his life, quite frankly. Here's a little digression I want to throw out there. I think sucker punching someone in the face should be attempted murder. Just like that. You get caught in a nightclub, some guy's not looking, you're a pussy, or you're drunk and you're a pussy, and you just punch someone right in the face, come around behind their head and smack him in the ear. It's attempted murder, and you go to jail. Period. And you end up in prison. That's an anarchy behavior, isn't it? Right? But if you truly need to affect change, and that's really the tipping point, right? There's a tipping point in the brain of man where they, woman or man, doesn't matter, where we say, we got to make a change. It's got to happen. You're going to have to be quiet and pass the education around. Don't try to be the one that gets credit for passing the information around. That's a stupid thing that people do. Well, I told them that this was wrong, and now they believe me, and now I'm a leader. I'm Alex Jones, for fuck's sake, right? Don't do that. Write it down on a piece of paper and leave it somewhere. Let someone find it. So leave it somewhere where they're likely to be at the tipping point themselves to say, yeah, I work at the factory and I come out with, coal in my lungs or whatever, or burn marks and whip marks because my government cattle prod, robot tells me what to do. And I found this note that says, it can be different. That's all it says. Life can be different. You can escape this. Just start infecting the mind with the ideas of freedom. They're naturally spawned from man anyway, right? If the mortal coil itself isn't injured into a docile nature through medication or bad food or bad water. So if anybody wanted to know my personal opinion of anarchy, I would say I haven't been convinced of a single instance where it would ever help out. It was a technique that the bankers used to take over South America, right? You had a good balanced country, maybe kind of a little bit of a dictatorship, sort of king kind of character. Again, don't give me a bunch of bullshit about fucking dictators when you have a bunch of monarchs still alive and running countries in Europe. I mean, give me a break. If you think dictators are bad, then get rid of all your monarchs. Okay? Get rid of them. Get rid of all the laws that say if they touch kids, they don't get prosecuted. No matter what they do. They're just free to do whatever they want constantly. But I haven't seen it. What are we doing now in 2018? Well, we have a bunch of movements. We've had this sort of incubating truth movement, which is now fractured into a bunch of opposing forces, right? So you have truth movement for flat earth, and some people hate that. We have truth movements for the moon missions and 9/11 and all the other massacres and crazy stuff that's going on. They're all segmented. People care more about one thing than another thing. Okay, fine. The number one thing that we need to focus on, I think, is anything that impedes freedom. The interesting thing about socialism is that probably one of the, and I just said this the other day, one of the things that we pride ourselves most on is our ability to take care of ourselves. And socialism is exactly the opposite. But it's only sold on one stupid Robin Hood philosophy, which is, you see that guy who worked really fucking hard? He worked 80 hours a week for 15 years, and that's why he owns the Lamborghini and the Bentley, and he has a beach house down there, and he's got a beautiful wife, or she did it, and she has a handsome husband and a bunch of great kids. Well, you can have all that. We're going to take it from her. And so your lazy ass who sits there doing whatever you're doing, marathoning, a bag of Cheetos and Netflix, you're going to have all these luxuries because you deserve it, because you're alive, right? That's the way they sell it to morons, right? Just blows my mind how idiotic socialism is, the whole idea of it. But then you become extremely dependent on services provided by your country. But now, let's go back to the thing I mentioned the other day. Story in the Bible. Beautiful story in the Bible. They wanted Jesus to show up every single day and convert, or basically make bread and fish out of these baskets infinitely to feed everybody. Bunch of lazy bastards. And Jesus was like, okay, I'll make one round, but the rest you're going to do yourself. I'm going to teach you how to fish. Stop coming to me to wipe your ass, okay? Throw a net, learn how it works, get yourself some fish. You'll probably catch 100 times more fish than you can eat before they go bad. For anyone you find who's a big socialist supporter, bring it up and say, well, this is one of the most brilliant passages that's quoted in the Bible. And whether or not Jesus was ever real or not doesn't matter. That was written into the Bible because it is actually one of sovereign skill and sovereign practice to be independent and self-sufficient. But now there's another behavior by a certain group of people, in America at least, that gets put in the anarchist camp, which I think is a gross exaggeration of what they're doing and a false classification of anarchy, and actually gives sort of a pseudo-credence to a bunch of really, I don't know what you want to call them, maybe deplorable human beings would be good. But they are middle-class kids. I don't want to say necessarily just white, because Seattle and Portland produces plenty of them in all the races and creeds around the world. They're native to those areas, of course. But they're rich kids, or they're well off enough they don't need to work because mommy and daddy's writing them checks because they're like, please don't remind me I'm a horrible parent. Please don't remind me that I don't know anything about what I'm doing. And please don't embarrass me at the next party by you going to jail or killing someone or raping someone or killing someone in a DUI accident, right? Here's your check. Here's your check. Here's your check. So these kids don't need to work. They're not necessarily trust fund babies, but they're the next thing down, right? They get out there, and their game is to say, I am a loser. I know I'm a loser currently. It's not a permanent condition, but currently they're losers. They contribute nothing to life. They have found absolutely no trade skills whatsoever. It's a guarantee. It is a guarantee that every single kid that wears these fucking, bandanas across their face, hitting innocent people for their First Right Amendment right to engage in the First Amendment, they have no trade skills. And I'll tell you why we know this for a fact. Because every kid that has a trade skill goes off and does that because it's like sex. And protesting and wasting your time is not what a person with talent and a trade skill does. Right? If you could fix a car, that's what you're doing because you love it. Right? If you're, I don't know, whatever the hell you are, you do it. A chick who gets out and surfs the waves here at Huntington Beach and wins the championship, well, I guarantee she's not at some protest somewhere. I mean, maybe like I showed up and I held a sign for a weekend, but I had to get back to surfing because that's what I do. There are career shit starters in all these regions. And there's obviously great people that don't believe in any of this crap in all those regions as well. Again, this is a microscopic sort of pathogen that we've caught. This cancerous virus that just needs to kind of die. The immune system that is normality and the center moderate American is just going to ignore them to the point that they don't get the reactions anymore. But these kids love getting on YouTube in a viral video. They love getting the mass media. So every time the 5 out of 6 news agencies put them on the air, hell, even Fox will put them on the air, it just energizes them to get out there and do it again. Did you see me, man, when I hit that chick in the face and then I ran? Mm-hmm. Sure did, tough guy. Sure did. You might classify these folks as anarchists because they are chaotic and strange. They seem to attach themselves to a purpose, but they don't really have one. The subject, I don't know if I've really touched on this, but let me put this down, because there's the, I forget the dude's name because I don't give a shit about sports, but the guy that invented the kneeling from the, 49ers, San Francisco 49ers. Big surprise he started there, right? But now we have like a handful of folks that still kneel during the national anthem or kneel before or whatever. Here's my take on that, because I was at a party once where a guy was like, I think it's great. I said, why are they kneeling? Well, Black Lives Matters. I said, well, the first reason I heard was police brutality. Then it morphed into just a generic Black Lives Matter, as if no other race matters, right? Candace Owens has got a great take on this, by the way. If you're not following her whole shtick, her Twitter or whatever, you get into it. She probably has a YouTube too, but I follow her through Twitter. I don't post on Twitter. I just look at a few geniuses talking every once in a while. But here you have all these guys who are obviously extremely talented at the sport of football. Great, awesome. But they're kneeling. Okay? They're trying to send a message, right? In some, I don't know, just astronomically stupid metaphorical way of kneeling during the Constitution of the United States? What does that have to do with this movement? Cops killing black guys has to do with the national anthem. Well, that's a symbol of America, and America's all screwed up. It's like, okay, all right. One, move the fuck out of this country, guys. Just pack your shit and get the fuck out of here. That's my opinion. But the second thing is, take some of your money, right? If you're so brilliant and profound at your protesting, take some of your money and go do a PSA, a public service announcement. Give us your big, bony brain opinion about how profound this situation is. And then maybe you want to look up, like Candace Owens suggests, who's a beautiful black American who's just, I don't know what her IQ is, but it's insanely high. One of the most articulate human beings on this planet, period, male, female, or whatever. She says they're not studying any of the facts that support this accusation, but they're dividing the nation on public television. And they're doing it during their job. They're taking their personal opinion and dragging it into the office, basically. How many of you could take your personal grudge against whoever, take it into work, and stand there right before the company, briefing by your CEO, and spew this crap? And then everyone just starts the meeting and goes on with their day or whatever, right? You would be fired so fast it would make your head spin, right? That's why we don't do it. So if you're making $100 million over 10 years, you got a little bit of spending cash to get out there and say, this doesn't have anything to do with NFL. It has to do with my personal opinion. Maybe get all together and do a big speech and quote the facts of your claim so that we can get alarmed by the truth, or maybe you study the facts and you realize you're full of shit. Again, I cite Candace Owens. Go see all her stuff on a daily basis. She's amazing. People, I think, wish that they understood what the world is going through right now, but they don't pay attention to anything. The people who are paying attention are your QAnon anons. Again, doesn't matter if that guy is JFK Jr. or some other schmo doing some LARP, or he's a real agent inside the Trump administration. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. The guy barely posts any information personally. He links out to everything so you can see it all at the source and get your own opinion about things. But he's raising the awareness at an autistic level of detail. Unbelievable connections that can be proven in a court of law. That's the cool thing, man. So you're not sitting across the table with someone in a beer making a bunch of claims. They can't be corroborated because there's no source. This dude's legit. All right? I am yet to see a single protest by anything Antifa or anything related to that type of protest where someone put a mic up to someone's face and said, what are you protesting? Give me all the details, all the facts, the cause and effect models of why this is a threat to you and to me and the whole world. And just have one intelligent person speak back. I haven't seen it one time, right? I think what's really beautiful about what's going on right now is that we are watching the Democrats, which I think, again, there are Democrats that are good people in America, and there's probably a gigantic portion, way over 50% of the Democrats in this country are actually normal human beings that just have slightly left-leaning opinions. But there's that microscopic group that are led by Feinstein and Pelosi and all these utter criminals where they're trying to magnify these extreme left agendas, right? But here's what's going on. They're burning their playbook. They are trying everything in the book that they can. They're not that intelligent in the first place, so everything is pathetic. The Kavanaugh hearings were pathetic, right? And so what happens is if you were to go see a magician, I've got a friend of mine who's an amazing magician. He performs at the Magic Castle. He's one of the best sleight of hand folks. I just talked about him recently. He does these tricks, but I only see him every once in a while. And part of it's just because he's in LA, really deep in LA, and he's got a busy schedule. I got a busy schedule, blah, blah, blah. But there was a time when he and I worked together almost every single day, several days a week, working on a pilot for him. And I started to see some of his tricks over and over and over again. I watched him pickpocket and do all kinds of things. Again, he's removing watches and ties and belts and shit. People have no idea this is happening to them. And first time he did it to me, it was just utter magic. I mean, it was just, you have adrenaline flowing through your body and serotonin, you're just in heaven. And then I started watching him do it to other people as I was, had to be a cameraman for him at one point. And I started seeing how it was done. And all of a sudden it lost a bit of its magic, right? I started figuring it out. But that's what's happening on the Democrat side. The crazy Democrats, right? Which is, again, that tiny group. They're watching how they lie. We're watching how they will go to astronomical lengths to accuse somebody of something they've never done. Unbelievable. We're also seeing a lot of people get on television, newscasters that have had these privileged jobs, and they're getting out there and embarrassing themselves, saying things that aren't true over and over and over again every single night. They're being videotaped, and it's going on the internet, and it's forever, and it's beautiful. I'll walk into my smoke lounge every once in a while, and my friends will say, oh, God, you see so-and-so say this on CNN or say this on blah, 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 and I go, and they're all angry and butthurt, and I just said, this is the greatest thing ever. And they said, why? And I said, because we got them. The world is waking up and becoming very sane and very centralist and very moderate with all things. Again, in the center of the two choices, the false paradigm of left and right. We're all finding ourselves in the center. Hey, I don't want to hurt you. In fact, let's go smoke a cigar. Let's go have some barbecue. Let's get our kids to play together or whatever. Well, what's going to be left is this unbelievably well-documented history of manipulation. They always say, not to learn history is to repeat it, right? Okay, great. These, I want to use a big dirty word right here, but I won't. But these folks are recording themselves every single night with big giant smiles on their face, thinking that they have intellectually dominated the world. It's hilarious. They literally go backstage and they're surrounded by these elite scumbags who pat them on the back, probably call them up. Man, that show was the best. Mr. Baldwin, you were so amazing on SNL, right? Okay. It's forever, man. It's forever. And when you find out you're wrong, when you find out that you were selling out your country, whether or not you did it intentionally because you got a pedophile thing hiding underneath your history, or you're just idiot, it's forever. It's awesome. Believe me, I understand what I'm doing too. And, it should be noted, as I reference myself and the, I don't know, the billions of episodes and minutes I've recorded that have been watched. Okay, so you change over time. It is my hope that folks that have embarrassed themselves eventually figure out that they were wrong. Not completely wrong necessarily, but they were just a little too extreme. Maybe a little too judgmental. Maybe they misunderstood who a person was. To have someone say, I totally know someone because I met him a couple times, it's just crazy, right? One of the most interesting situations I've seen of someone sort of repenting on camera was Geraldo Rivera. Geraldo Rivera? Yeah. He, after 9/11, was extremely rude to the survivors of 9/11 that questioned the events of that day. And it went on for years. I don't even remember how many years. It seemed like at least 10 years. He would, oh my God, I mean, he went out once and started cussing out someone in a public event in New York, and he was on stage recording something, and someone was shouting something at him, and he started calling them names. And there's been a couple hosts that have done that, chased them out of their talk shows at night on camera, being the big hero, defending the truth of 9/11, okay, whatever. And then he had the wherewithal and the courage to meet one of their surviving fathers and the leader of engineers and architects for 9/11 Truth, who sat there with physics and said, what you saw was not what you were told you saw. Because for that to happen in a world of physics, a bunch of different things had to have occurred. And he listened, and he was extremely polite. And at the end of the show, which I believe was his last show of that show, they canceled him. Maybe he knew he was going to be canceled. I don't know the details. But he said, I have to apologize because this was a very emotional event for me. I'm from New York, and I didn't want to believe anything could be different than what I was told because it was so painful. The official story brings, as much as it brings torment to my soul, it brought comfort to my soul that the other stories aren't true. But in a light way, he just basically said, you may have convinced me that there's something to this. And I thought, my God, he repented right on television. And I haven't seen him engage in that conversation since. Maybe he has, but I have no knowledge of that. But I thought that was cool. He's not saying he knows what it is, and he's not saying one person's right and one person's wrong. The architects and engineers for 9/11 don't really get into the motive and exactly who did it. They just simply say, well, the physics of what you were told, planes hitting the World Trade Centers, it simply can't take down the Central World Trade Centers. It just can't. Something else had to have occurred. Okay, good. What's fascinating to me is that a lot of folks that are very, very wealthy, that will never, ever be poor, are convincing people that are poor or soon to be poor for the rest of their lives because they don't have any educations, who are protesting and, again, hurting innocent people at protests and taking paychecks by trees. They're telling these people to go out and do their dirty work for them. Oh, they might do a little hit piece on television or whatever, but they go back to their mansions. They go back to their giant bank accounts. They don't worry about anything, right? They're going to survive, but you won't. But you're supposed to do the dirty work for them, right? Here's the thing, man. We all have to remind ourselves that when it really comes down to it, when religion is pulled out of the experience of life, when politics is pulled out of the experience of life, when it's just two or more human beings in a public gathering to just simply exist, and you don't know anything about anybody. You don't know that they don't believe in Jesus or do believe in Jesus. You don't know anything about anybody. Like when we're kids in the playground, we have no knowledge of indoctrination when we're really young. All those videos of the black kid hugging the white kid and the white kid hugging the black kid, and then, someone writes the caption over it like racism is a taught thing. It's 100% true, right? We don't want any of this, right? We don't want anyone to suffer. If you want someone else to suffer and they haven't done something explicitly towards you unfairly, right? They come into your house and steal your stuff. They come up to you and punch you in the face. You have no idea who they are. If that kind of event has not occurred and you feel hatred towards them, then you're the sucker. You are the complete sucker, and you've been had. And your level of intelligence at the point you injected yourself with that game of hating someone, you weren't intelligent enough to discern that you were being had. So, okay, how much longer in your life do you want to be had? How much longer do you want to be a sucker? The interesting thing about the concept of being a sucker is that at some point you will be on your deathbed. It's inescapable, right? And it's at that point you measure your life. And you say, well, did I fight the good fight? Was I a sucker? Wasn't I an idiot? Did I just waste every year I was alive for the most part? Well, if you're a sucker on your deathbed, then maybe you did. You know, we're all suckers here and there. And it's not bad to have been suckered in by something and you get out of it because you suffer the pain, you wake up, you realize, oh my God, she was playing me, he was playing me, da 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 da. That's fine. That's the best part of life. Waking up out of those moments and learning from your mistakes and doing whatever you can to try and prevent that moving forward. That's what life is about. That's the awesome phase of life. But to never wake up, to constantly stay in some hatred mode, Are there evil people in the world that probably should gain that opinion from us forever? Yes, there are. There's evil dictators, evil military people, evil people that just were horrible people their whole life. And they did, we can wish them well in the next world, but in this world, maybe you find some sympathy for them. I don't know. If you do, great. You probably won that game too. Will I ever revere LBJ? No, never. I think he participated in the death of JFK, and I think he most definitely greenlit, using false flag operations, Vietnam, which resulted in a horrible 11-year slaughter. Totally unjust, right? Will I ever like George Soros? Well, he's got a few years left before he's dead. We'll just see if he turns a new leaf. But I'm going to probably estimate at this point, no, I'm not going to ever think anything good about that guy, ever. Hell, maybe there's a cabal I don't even know about that's going to flip my opinion of everything that I think is good. Who knows? But at least you and I are awake. And we're thinking for ourselves. And we're using, on this show, you use funny episodes to make your brain think. The moon missions are a hoax, or space travel or whatever. You're using other things to massage your brain into thinking for yourself. So when the important stuff comes around, you're ready. It's easy, right? If you get on the Anon train of QAnon, you get into it and you try to participate and read and get into other people's posts and why they think things, even if you don't agree with them, man, they are in your brain massaging your circuitry, making sure it flows perfectly. And you're probably, again, by using your brain, you improve your brain. You use your synapse, you grow more synapse. It's just the way it works, right? There's a physical volume limit to the size of your brain in your head, but other than that, which I'm pretty sure most of us have a lot of extra space in there, and there's probably a lot of space in our brain that's not being used as much, and we're turning it all on. We're basically walking in, instead of like, the old scary movies where people walked in dark rooms and they're just walking right past the light switch, and you're like, turn the freaking light on, Thinking for yourself is turning all the lights on in a scary house. Giving yourself more visual information to avoid the bad guy. Or to dismiss that the bad guy was really just a cat in the corner, The best thing that we can do to affect change is to educate. But there's nothing more, how do I say this? Let me put it this way. You cannot assume, I think, anything more liable than being a teacher. Meaning, to teach something wrong is probably one of the worst things you can do. I made plenty of mistakes on this show where I've been told the wrong thing by someone that I trusted, and I didn't look it up to make sure that at least there's some sort of corroborating evidence, or even just you could read like the official story and then you could read the alternate theories and make a deduction. But sometimes I believe things or read things. Sometimes I just make a mistake. I just get a number wrong in my brain. I just looked up one today, as a matter of fact. I have said that, I don't know if I've said this on the show, I think I have several times, unfortunately. The leader Chavez from Venezuela, who I believe was poisoned and killed. He died of a massive heart attack, and that is one of the first weapons ever created was a heart attack gun, and there's all kinds of ways to do it with all kinds of different techniques, just to put it that way. Most of you are familiar with that, but he also had colon cancer at the time. I have falsely claimed that he had pancreatic cancer, and he did not have pancreatic cancer. And even his people said that, but it was the Ministry of Defense, and his country said, we definitely believe he was poisoned because he just suddenly died. It was like he got this cancer, and then he had this heart attack and passed away. He threatened the petrodollar, and he said he's going to offer a barrel of oil for 100 years for $50. And as soon as he said that, he had health issues, and he died, and that country is now completely upside down in a socialistic tailspin, right? So when you do educate, try to educate. I would say try to keep things fairly primitive and simple concepts that everyone can get on board with. Common law is a great one. Do no harm, right? When you want to talk about the educational system, it's pretty easy to prove that at least 50% of most educations coming out of colleges in at least America are unemployable. They have the same cost, though, as the one with the trade skill. It's sad. It's sad that we frown on kids that go off to learn how to fix cars, but we celebrate the child that gets a degree in psychology but never becomes a psychiatrist or a psychologist. If you want to affect change, educate. Be careful. If you're going to be an educator, you need to read constantly about whatever you think you're educating about. You know, I have taught classes of incredible detail about the brain and how the mind works when telling stories or playing video games. But I spent 6 months in the most incredible regimented research of my life, making sure that the script worked, because it was being vetted by the 10-year professors before I was able to teach it, as I invented the class, right? I was nervous. Even teaching the class, even after I had done all my research, I was very nervous, you know? The other thing, and this is just a digression on teaching, again, for the purpose of whatever you want to teach, but again, we're talking about trying to short circuit chaotic moments of anarchy or the urge to engage in such sort of renegade last-ditch effort methodology to get what you want changed. You usually don't change anyone's opinion by calling them a name real quick. A lot of people get out there and protest on chats and YouTube channels and whatever, Twitter or whatever, Facebook, and they're just being acidic. And so right from the very beginning, they'll say things like, first of all, yeah, I know everyone's made that mistake. I've made it. Basically, what first of all translates into the mind of someone who's not likely to believe what you think is, you're an idiot, or dear idiot, comma, is what first of all means. It's a patronizing lead-in to a explanation that otherwise might be very valuable. Be kind. Be empathetic to their views. Say, I understand why you feel this way. I totally do. I try to do this on the show, and I talk about kids that are protesting in Berkeley or something. I'm sure if they, again, had talent or something else that was awesome, you know, when you do something that you love, you don't feel like you're working. That's the love of a trade skill or talent of any kind. But if I were truly, not to be on the show, getting heated and cussing every once in a while, if I went to Berkeley and spoke to these kids and said, look, I understand. I understand the basics of what you feel. Now let's talk about it. Because talking about the problem has its value, but talking about the solution is 10 times the value. So where do you want to be? Forget everyone else in the entire world. For this moment we're in this auditorium together, where do you want to be? Let's pick out 6 people that are very different in the audience and just go for it, right? I'm sure we could find solutions for people. And they're probably right under their nose. That's the funny part. You could put down their padlocks and their skateboards and take off the stupid masks and wear, clothing with color. They might even look at their immediate past and go, my God, I can't believe I fell for all this. Well, the good news is you're not falling for it anymore. You found the solution, which is just a path, right? The whole thing with Wizard of Oz, the beautiful analogy was she was dragged from Kansas to this crazy world where the wizard lives in the city of Oz, way down there. And what did the good witch say? The good witch says, follow the yellow brick road. Right? There's a bunch of analogies about bankers and stuff, but let's just take it down to the whole thing of she was told her solution was at the end of this path, and technically it was. She meets the wizard behind the curtain who's pulling all the levers, right? It's a total metaphor for how the world is being controlled. But eventually, at the end, she's told she had the power all the time. Click your heels together. It was right under her nose the whole time. Had she just clicked her heels together right after she landed, she wouldn't have met anyone, wouldn't have had that experience. So she's the wiser after the whole adventure. She made 3 good friends, right? Man, I have to say, I wouldn't want to miss the Lollipop Guild if I was her. So hopefully this episode's structured enough that you don't feel like you're listening to a meandering person. It's a good suggestion. It's a really good suggestion. I appreciate it. I have a lot of episodes in the queue, and so I'm going to be chugging them out fairly quickly. And there'll probably be another pause as I amass more episodes. Anytime I have an episode where I have to create a little bit of artwork, it really puts a little pause in everything. So that at some point I feel like this episode needs to go next. And so I sit there and I'll get into Photoshop and draw half the images, and then I'll take another week to get the other half out. So I apologize for the delays. But for those of you who keep coming back, there's a bunch of new subscribers. It's interesting, when I don't post videos, I get this major surge in subscriptions. So I'm not going to try to play that game, but it's just interesting how that happens. But if you haven't been to deepthoughtsradio.com, that's sort of the jump off point, right? You're like, well, I found you on YouTube. Where else can I find you? You just go to deepthoughtsradio.com. You could make that your way that you get the episodes if you want. If you don't want to use YouTube, most of you just use YouTube. But if you want to listen to it in your car, there's the podcast. You just click on the RSS icon on the front page on your mobile device, your device that has the podcast capabilities that broadcast to your car. And then you'll have that taken care of. For those of you who want to see just a really cool Facebook page, we have a locked Facebook page. I just have to do that because I want all the sort of the spy accounts to not get in there as much as we can. But there's a bunch of great regulars that post really funny stuff. And again, you don't have to agree with these theories, but man, some of I get really entertained by the flat earth posts that are up there because they do make some really funny, good points, and they really point out the fact that people believe it's round with no personal evidence. They have book evidence and academic evidence, but they haven't seen the Earth from space. There's just a bunch of problems with the whole thing. So it just keeps you on your toes, right? I guarantee it will make you think, if nothing else. As well, there's a link for Patreon. So if you guys want to donate a couple bucks, really cool. For all of those who do, I really appreciate it. But for those of you who just come back and you comment every episode, you give me a thumbs up, super duper appreciate it. For those of you, pass it around to your friends because you think a particular episode appeals to one of your friends, super appreciate that. For those of you who have marathoned the whole channel, hats off to you because it just baffles me that all the episodes would appeal to you that much, that you would not find episodes where you're like, I don't want to listen to that. There are some episodes out there I think are gems that are under 300 watches. So if you want to see some of my personal favorites, go look at the ones that are really low view counts, and you're going to find, I think, some gems out there. Regardless, take care of yourself and someone else, and I will see you in the next Deep Thoughts. Over now.